Sorry for the that doesn't sound like a color. That's great. All right. Copy. Boom. All right. We're gonna go. Just post this to the good old. Here is the new live stream link. Post. And post. All right, let's all right, we got two people. All right, they're starting to come back. Man, technology, am I right? What's up? I think that's Isaac. All right, so as we're waiting for some people on YouTube to come, so I got 3 great questions. What's up, dude? That I thought I just got through really great questions. And so I'm on Instagram. So I think I'm just going to go over those questions and then kind of talk a little bit about some Easter stuff. Isaac, don't do that to me. He said my mic was still muted and then he said his volume was off. Don't scare me like that. So the questions that were asked were, how did I meet my wife? Like why and how did we pursue adoption? And then how my daughter just walked that way outside. The windows are open. And then like what does time with Jesus look like in the morning? And so I think I'm just gonna start talking about those 3 questions, and then we'll be done. So, how did I meet my wife? Well, this is really bad. I was explaining this today, and I can't remember. I'm pretty sure I was 19 when I remember meeting her. So I think I was 19, and we got. So Peter LaRufa, some of you know him. He's the Fort Thomas campus pastor. He was the youth pastor. So at that time, guys and girls were in mixed groups, and so there was a male leader and a female thing for us to be paired up together. Well, I was like, oh, cool. She seems nice. I don't really know her very well, but sounds like she's pretty cool. So I, throughout the week, we worked really well together. But unbeknownst to me, she developed a crush on me. I was not really thinking about that at all because she's 5 years older than me. And I was like, I'm 19. I'm like, there's no way that she'd be interested in me. So I'm like, whatever. Then towards the end, one of the guys, one of the older youth leaders who had actually been one of my youth leaders when I was in high school, puts his arm around me. He's like, Josh, what'd you think about Laura Perrin? And that was her maiden name. And I was like, oh, she was great. Like, I think we worked really well together. And he was like, you know what I mean? I'm like, dude, she's like 5 years older. There's no way she'd be interested in me. Nah. And he was just like, you know what? I wouldn't let that bother you. So I was like, oh man, what do I do now? So I, about a week or so later, I went on a missions trip to Albania, and Peter happened to be on that trip, him and his wife Sarah, and we're walking down, I don't know, I forget what airport we were in. We were walking down to our airplane, and Peter's like, so Laura Perrin. And I'm like, and Sarah, I just remember she gives me this look like, don't act like you don't know what we're talking about. I'm just like, ugh. Okay, here we go. So I spend that trip just kind of talking with all the married guys and just like, man, I don't know what to do. Because at this point, like, I'd never dated anybody. I was kind of close at one point, but like, I never dated anybody. So I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going on. So shortly after that, there's a whole lot of detail I'm not going to go into. Like, there's a whole story. I'll tell you guys sometime about how I got her phone number and all this different stuff. But eventually, I asked her out for coffee and decided to ask her a bunch of questions. There was still a lot I didn't know about her. And so I was just like, I'm just going to ask her and see like what she thinks about life and things. And so we had that talk, but then one weekend was CDT. So that's our counseling and discipleship training. And there was a family friend that came down and hung out with Laura. It was his first time. He didn't really know much about biblical counseling. So he was at CDT. And so he and Laura went out to eat afterwards. And I'm like, oh man, this dude's competition. Like, this isn't good. And I don't know who this guy is at all. He's literally just a friend. And they went out and were just trying to process all the information you get from the counseling and discipleship training. And so, but I was texting her like the whole night, like just trying to get her to respond. And normally she responded pretty quick. So like, I was a little bit, why isn't she responding? She's not responding. And she was actually a little bit ticked at me because I hadn't said anything yet. Like, I had kind of given some indication that like I was interested in her, but like I hadn't said anything. And so she was a little bit ticked at me for that. So finally I'm like, you know what? I just got to tell her like I like her and I'd like to like pursue marriage with her. And so so I asked her out for coffee again, and she arrives. We're talking a little bit, and I am just so nervous. Like, I'm a nervous wreck. I'm like, I don't know how to say this. And keep in mind, I'm also expecting to get rejected. I'm expecting that she's gonna be like, yeah, that's cute, but I just want to be friends or something like that. So we're talking, and I'm really trying hard to get this out. I'm like stammering. I'm like, and doing a lot of that. And then eventually I'm like, I gotta spit out my gum. It's stale. And so I like get up, spit out my stale gum, come back, take a deep breath, and I ask her and say, would you think about praying about pursuing marriage with me? And I forget how quickly she responded, but she said, you know what? I don't have to. I'm like, oh, here it comes. Here's the rejection. She's like, because I already have been. I'm like, what? I almost fell back in my seat. Like, it on that, I remember sitting by the window at the Starbucks on Mall Road. Okay. If you've ever been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Just like in the kind of like in the middle of that outer window area. I'm sitting there and I'm just like almost fall back in my seat. I'm just like, oh, okay, this is awesome. And I'm not exactly sure what to do now, because I was expecting you to say no. So give me a second. And so our church is really blessed in a lot of ways, because one of the specific things you can go to for counseling is pre-engagement counseling. And so I was like, how about we do that? Because I don't know what I'm doing. And I think it'd be great if we had somebody to come alongside of us and help us. Let's try it. So the funny thing is, Laura had said to her roommate before she left, she's like, I cannot come back dating him, because she was still a little bit angry with me. And so she comes back instead saying, I'm going to do pre-engagement counseling with him. So that's a little bit more of a step. So anyways, that's how we met. It was right around her birthday, and a year later, after a lot of counsel and me needing to grow up, I finally proposed on her birthday, and about 2.5 months later, we got married. And this year is actually going to be our 10th anniversary. So we'll have been married for 10 years in December. So that's how I met my wife. That's how we kind of started our relationship. And yeah. So that was the question about how I met my wife. There was another question about adoption and just kind of how we kind of went about the process of adopting our little teeny tiny baby girl. Except she's getting bigger. So, and actually, I can maybe find some stuff, but we've posted stuff before, but I'm going to give you guys the live version. So, I am Isaac. I'm 30. I will be 31. Yes. So, adoption. So I've honestly always wanted to adopt. I've always thought it would be the sweetest thing to like have. I love diversity. I love just honestly, it's almost like a mini picture of heaven. In heaven, there's going to be people from all different nations. And so to be able to like almost have that little picture at home, it has just been like a dream of mine. So we so that's kind of like always been a thing in the back of my mind. And then when we got married, we talked when we got married, we talked about like kids and things like that. And we decided we would try to have kids first. But it was, so honestly, there was I'm trying to think about all the different things that were going on in my head. So forgive me. One of, kind of the path that got us started towards adoption was we had, and some of you have heard this story before, but we've had 4 miscarriages. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but I've got this tattoo, each of the babies, and they were all pretty early on, but each one was hard in a different way. So there was one time where Laura called, and I was at work, and she was like, I need you to come home now. And I was riding my bike to work at the time, so I biked home as fast as I could, and I found her on the floor, passed out, and she was bleeding internally, and she was quickly dying because she had that kind of pregnancy. And so that we've had all sorts of different, obviously Laura's still alive, so that's a huge answer to prayer and blessing. But we've had all sorts of different experiences with just miscarriages. And so it wasn't until our last one that I think the Lord really kind of broke me a little bit. The last one was the hardest because the doctor had said, I don't see any reason why this shouldn't work. And then when we found out she was miscarrying, I was just a mess. Like, it was so hard and I just didn't know what to do. I was very angry at God, very upset. And yeah, so that kind of anger, bitterness towards God lasted months. And there was one point where a friend of mine from work, he was about my dad's age actually, and he just really helped me heal. So he just hugged me, he listened, he let me cry, and then he encouraged me to read the Psalms out loud every day and pray through them. And just doing that massively helped just my bitterness towards God. It reminded me of God's character and his promises. That reading through the Psalms reminded me that God really is good. He yes, even though there are hard things that we go through, he's still good. He still loves us. He still understands. And he's never promised that we would live a life that is free of hurt or worry or pain. But he promised to be with us in all of it. And it was through that season that the Lord kind of showed me his gentleness. Fast forward a little bit, Laura and I had been picking up the conversation about adopting because I think regardless of whether or not we had biological children, we really wanted to adopt. So, but we were like, I don't make a lot of money and I'm not really sure when we're supposed to start. So Laura had been praying, and guys, this is just super cool and super convicting. I've been really bad at prayer for a long time and just not asking God to work in specific ways. God doesn't promise to answer all your prayers exactly the way you ask it. But sometimes he does. And when he does, you can clearly see that he answered it. So one of the things my wife had been praying was, Lord, would you allow somebody just to, would you have somebody just give us some money? Just any amount of money. $5 would be great. She had been praying that for a couple months. And then in December, the Lord had 2 different people give us. That's a lot of money. Adoption's really expensive, so that doesn't cover it. But that was just and the cool thing was one of the people that gave money didn't even know that we were needing money to adopt. And so for that to happen was just a clear answer to prayer. It was so awesome. So we started as soon as we got back home. So this was January. So remember these dates. We started the process in January. Okay, we started the process then, and during that, we were gonna adopt somebody from the United States, because Laura can't really travel internationally, and people need homes here too. So, but again, there was this aspect of like, we really want somebody who doesn't look like us. And so anyways, we there were several kind of situations that came up where a birth mom was trying to make a plan for her child. And so we were like, ooh, we would love to be a part of that. And every time, I think we applied a handful of times, and every time the birth mom chose somebody else. We were like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. So we decide in all this craziness, like, hey, we should probably buy a house. I don't know why we thought that, but anyways. So we were going to buy a house. We were actually in the process of signing the papers for the loan, and Laura gets a call on her phone, and it's our adoption consultant. Like, wait, okay, that's fine. But then I get a call from our adoption consultant. Our adoption consultant never calls me. She's only talked with Laura, really. And I'm like, what is going on? So we finish up, we head back, and it's still kind of it's a Wednesday, it's in the middle of the day, so I still need to come back to the church and work. But on our way, Laura calls and was like, hey, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, Laura starts crying. Getting emotional thinking about it. Laura starts crying, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a situation. There's a birth mom who's wanting to make a plan for her baby. And we were like, okay, what's gonna happen? And Laura gets off the phone and says that there's a birth mom who is in labor, and she wants us to cut the cord, but she's in Texas. And it's like, wait, do what? Where is she? We have to be, what do we even do? So we drive back. Peter LaRufa is walking towards me, and I'm just like crying. I'm a mess. I have no idea what's going on. And I somehow get out that we need to get to Texas because of a baby coming. And he's like, do you want me to book the tickets? So he books the tickets for us. And our friends, Lee and Candace Nordine, helped us. Lee drove us to the airport, and my whole brain was just shot. I was just like, I don't even know what's happening. We don't even know if it's a boy or a girl. Like, we're just like, I don't even know what's happening. So, and then finally, after we get through security, like literally right after we get through security at the Cincinnati Northern Kentucky airport, we get a picture of Honora Ray for the first time and find out that it's a baby girl. And we're just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So we finally get to Texas. It's like 1 a.m. or something like that. And we're like, the first hotel we go to, there's no room. It's like, this is how Mary and Joseph felt. There's no room in the inn. But then we went to another one, and it turned out like super awesome. They were really great. The lady at the front desk was adopted herself, and so like she was just like really happy for us and whatever. So anyways, eventually we get to meet Honora Ray and her birth mom the next morning, and we got to choose her name with her birth mom. So I came up with the names, but I had 3 names, and so I was like, I don't know which one to like weed out. And the nurse who was like helping us fill out paperwork, she was like, you can use all 3. Like, you can do whatever you want. And we're like, oh yeah, we can do that. So we named her Honora Ray, which is her first name, and then Quinn. So Honora means light, Ray means grace, and Quinn means wise. And so yeah, that's how we got her, and it was nuts. It's pretty it's just pretty crazy to think about right now. But that's how we kind of even got on the journey of adoption. That's how we were able to bring Honora Ray home, and it was really cool. All right, so had another question on time with Jesus. So somebody asked, what does your time with Jesus look like in the morning? I think that's a really good question. So it's on my phone, so I'm not going to be able to show you guys, but there's a organization called Bible Project, and fun story, before I started working at the church, I worked at a video production company in Cincinnati. That video company was called Epiphio, Video and Epiphany put together. So Epiphio. One of the founders of Epiphio is one of the two main founders, is one of the co-founders of Bible Project. And a lot of animators that I used to work with now work for the Bible Project. It's really crazy. It's awesome. But anyways, they have an app called Read Scripture. And so what I'll do in the morning is I will go through, they have a reading plan. And so you can watch, and so they'll have it broken up, what you're supposed to read that day. But if you're starting a new book of the Bible, there will be a video that you can watch before you actually read that book. So it's almost like giving you that big picture summary of what that book is about and some of the themes in it. So that way, when you go to read it, you kind of understand what's going on. So I use that to tell me what I should be reading. And yeah, I just read it in my physical Bible so I don't get distracted. I'll usually go into this room and read. I'm actually in First Chronicles right now. So it's actually technically the last book of the Bible written, because it kind of summarizes the whole Bible. It's not Malachi. And yeah, I just go through it. I underline things that I find interesting. I'll circle things. If something doesn't make sense, I'll pull out specifically the ESV Study Bible. This is the Christian Standard Version. I like it. It's really hard. I like the way this reads. Like it's a little bit more readable, but the ESV Study Bible has some of the best study notes. And so when you're confused about something, you can go and read what the Study Bible says. So when I'm confused about something, I'll like look that up and see like, wait, why did it say this? And I thought it said this in another book. So it helps me understand things. But yeah, I'll read it. I'll specifically be looking for, what is this telling me about what God is like? And is there anything specific in my heart and in my mind that I need to change? So this morning, I was reading in First Chronicles, and in chapter 21, there's a specific part where David sins. He's super proud. And one of the things I wrote down in my margins, it's actually because I like to write stuff sometimes. And one of the thing I wrote down in part of this is owning your sin. and how important it is that when you sin, you need to own up to it. And that's exactly what King David did in this passage. So I make notes. I think through it. Part of the reading plan is I read a psalm every day. And so I'll usually pray through that psalm as well. So, for example, today was Psalm 68. And one of the things in here is in verse 19, it says, "Blessed be the Lord, day after day, he bears our burdens. God is our salvation." And that was one of the, I knew hooray, just the, man, I have a friend who's going through something really, really hard right now. And just to know the weight of what they're going through, and honestly, it's affecting me too. But to know that burdens, God is our salvation. God is our. I was thanking the Lord this morning that I don't have to go through this by myself, and that He is here in this with me. So, yeah. I'll read in the plan. I'll read a psalm. I'll pray through that psalm. I'll make notes. If I have questions, I'll look at the study Bible. And then at the end, I'll just a lot of times take some time and just journal my prayers. Especially when you do your time in the Word in the morning, sometimes your brain isn't like fully on all cylinders. So I'll make some coffee or I'll make some tea. And by writing, it helps me stay focused. So that's kind of what time in the Word looks like for me. I found a Bible written as though Yoda was telling you the story of Jesus. That's hilarious. And no, I'm not 26, but I think you read that. Yeah. So, what do you mean the KJV? Isaac, what do you mean by that? The KJV, the King James Version. That's not the version I use. I either use the CSB, which is the Christian Standard Bible, and oh yes, King James Version is very, very difficult to read. Even sometimes the New King James, but like Pastor Brad reads from the New King James. That's normally when he preaches, that's what he'll use. So Easter, I'm kind of excited, a little bit nervous, but I'm kind of excited. Starting Thursday, you guys will be seeing some specific posts leading up to Easter. So in the story, in what happened, there's something that happened on Thursday, there's something that happened on Friday, something that happened on Saturday, and something that happened on Sunday around Easter. And so you guys will be getting some specific posts around that. The thing I would encourage you guys to do is take some time and think about, especially when these posts come out, take some time and think about what Easter is about, what the point of Easter is. What's the big deal that Jesus rose from the dead? There's a whole lot of things that I think Easter can sometimes just be, we dress up, we go to church. Sorry, too soon. We watch a specific sermon for us this year. there's candy, there's Easter eggs, there's like all these different things, all these pastel colors, which I like dark brooding colors. So I'm like, but it can just so easily become not about Jesus. It can so easily become. We're gonna start on Thursday. What the post is going to be about, what you guys will be seeing, is based out of John 13. So we talked a little bit about this in the Who is Jesus series, but I think that John 13, 1 through 17, and then we're going to go to John 18 and kind of through like most of 20 or all of 20. So John 13, 1 through 17, and then John 18 through chapter 20 is what we're going to be hitting on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So take some time to do that. Don't waste this time. Don't waste Easter. I've wasted so many holidays that are supposed to remind me of who God is and things he's done. And I've wasted the lead up. These specific, holidays, celebrations, work much better when you can kind of be preparing yourself ahead of time. Like, that's why we do all this stuff, forget even just Christianity. That's why everybody else does all these different things leading up to Christmas, because they're trying to get ready for Christmas. I would encourage you, try to get ready for Easter. When you sit down to watch the sermon on Sunday morning, think about what it must have been like. You had seen Jesus die, and now he's alive. That's what the disciples experienced. And I won't get ahead of myself because there will be posts about this coming. But I just want to encourage you, don't waste Easter. Think about it, pray about it, read in John, and see what the Lord does. That's all I got. I love you guys. I am going to sign off of here and to work on those Easter posts. But I'm glad you guys came, joined me. I'm going to pray. Actually, I'm going to pray for you guys before I sign off here. Okay. Is that cool? Jesus, I want to thank you that you are the risen King of the world. Death could not defeat you. And our sin wasn't so bad. Or our sin was really bad, but your grace, your payment completely be preparing hearts and minds to really get stoked about what Easter is about. Lord, we need you to work in our hearts. Help us to not just get busy. Help us to not just get selfish. Help us to not just let this Easter go by, but help us to take advantage of this time to remember what an amazing God, what an amazing sacrifice, and what an amazing resurrection we have. We love you, and we pray all these things in King Jesus' name. Amen. All right, guys. Love you all. Thanks for joining. And you'll see my face probably again soonish.